Alright, it's live. Alright, let's do this. Start? Okay. Hello? You should put it in your pocket. Hello? Hey guys. Hello? Alright, let's start, guys. So, my name is Vincent. I'm a TA for this class. My office hours are on Mondays from 1 to 2. I say that because no one's come yet. So far during office hours, I've been doing the labs and the homework. So at the end of the lecture, I'll be giving out my phone number so you guys can text me during office hours. Anyways, so today we're going to be talking about gems and more about forms. And if you remember last week, Derek talked about basic forms. So to talk about gems, we really need to talk about what bundler is, what your gem file is, what your gemfile.lock is, what gem sets are. And for forms, we're going to talk about validations. And then we're going to introduce our first gem. So in this lecture, I'm trying to make it more interactive. So if you guys could humor me, like 1 finger up for if you think it's A, 2 fingers for B, 3 fingers for C, 4 fingers for D. Yeah, so what do you guys think a gem is? Right. Very cool. Well, you guys are all right because I looked it up on Google, and a gem is defined as each one of these things. So congratulations. So Rails gems are libraries written for the Ruby language, and they're the equivalent of what modules are for Python and what packages are for JavaScript. So basically, it's just external libraries that other people have written, and you can import them into your own code and use them. So gems have unique names and versions. So if you ever run like gem install gem name, it's guaranteed to be the only one with that name. So if you ever look on like look for packages online for any specific like developer framework, you'll see like a bunch of different gem names for the same thing. So some people will be like, oh, this is the Twitter API, or this is just Tweets API, or like, and that's because everyone has to have a unique name. And because everyone has a unique name, it's easy to keep track of them and to use the ones that you want to use. And they also have unique versions, so that when the developer of the gem updates something or fixes something, you can install the newest version. So that's a requirement when you come out or like say create your own gem. And inside a gem, there is the code that is the actual library. It's required to have tests to show that the gem actually does something. There'll be documentation about the gem teaching you how to use it. And there will be something called a gem spec, which is basically a file containing a lot more information about the gem, like who the developer was, more details about the gem, etc. And there is a gem for literally everything. Just like you probably know that there's like a library for everything. And whether it's like in emailing, payments, helping your workflow, there's a gem for all of that. And since this class is Ruby on Rails, if you guys haven't guessed yet, Ruby is the language and Rails is a gem. That is a web framework. And that's a gem right there. So next we're going to be talking about bundler. So bundler is the environment for Ruby projects, and it helps you track and install gems. So for example, if you wanted to install a gem, you could run like gem install pg, which is Postgres. But what if you want to install like 20 gems? Like, are you going to run gem install first one, second one, third one, all together? So bundler is a way to handle all of that. And by using bundler, you can put all the gems that you want to have installed in something called a gem file. And if you just run bundle install, it automatically looks for the gem file. And it looks at all the gems you have listed there, and it automatically downloads them for you. And bundler is also a gem. So if you don't have bundler, you first install a gem install bundler. And then later, you can use bundler to install other gems. Any questions?
It's just like requirements.txt on Python.
Yes. So now we're going to talk about a gem file. So gem files require at least one gem source. And usually people use rubygems.org. That's where most of the gems are officially hosted. But you can also install gems from Git repositories. So say like someone's developing a gem and it's in the really early stages, or it's just not pushed to the official like rubygems.org repo yet, you can still include it in your gem file and you can still like pull that code. And you can also place gems into different groups. So say, for example, you use certain gems for developing and certain gems for testing. But you don't want them in your production environment because there's no need for them to be there. So what you can do is group your gems together under certain categories, like very common ones are develop, test, production. And the bundler is smart enough to look through the gem file and install the ones that are relevant to the current environment variables. So I'm going to give an example of a gem file. And every time you create a Ruby on Rails project, a gem file is created for you. And this is what one looks like. Yes. What? Oh, yeah. Cool. Next, actually, does anyone know what a gemfile.lock is, or wondered what a gemfile.lock is? It lives in your Ruby on Rails project, right under the gem file. So where in the gem file, you basically list all the dependencies you want. The gemfile.lock basically shows you all the gems that you have installed in your environment. So for example, if your gemfile.lock was empty and you had a gem file and you ran bundle install, all those gems will show up in your gemfile.lock. So gemfile.lock is an easy way to see everything you have installed. So you can think of a gemfile.lock file as a snapshot of all the gems and their versions you have installed in your environment. So now we're going to talk about RVM. And I'm not sure if you guys remember, but in the very first week, when we were all setting up our environments, there was this one line here, this one line that installs RVM. And I'm not sure if you guys know what RVM is for, but I'm going to go into that. So RVM is a tool that allows you to install multiple versions of Ruby. So if you're working on different projects and different projects have different like Ruby versions, like say 2.1.2, 2.1.1, whatever, you can switch your Ruby environment with RVM. You just use like RVM use like 2.1.2, whatever. But another cool feature of RVM is RVM gem sets. So what an RVM gem set does is it allows you to have all the gems you have installed in a certain environment like loaded into your project. So say, for example, you have like, I don't know, 5 Ruby on Rails projects, and they all have different gems. You don't want to install everything into your system because that'll take a longer time to load because you have all these gems and they're not all necessary for each project. So what you want to do is have a gem set, which basically loads all the gems you have installed in a particular environment. So these typically are unique to like a project. So say I have a Ruby on Rails Decal project 1 directory. I'm probably going to use a gem set for there. And whenever I switch to that directory, I'm just going to switch the gem set that I'm using. And they're also really nice because you can distribute your gem sets. So say you have a custom gem set and you want to send it to your friends. Like there's no way of doing that if you just install everything right into your system. Any questions? Okay. So now we're going to introduce and talk about the first gem in this class. You might have seen other gems on Piazza, but today we're going to actually use one and dive pretty deep into it. And we're going to build off the material that was covered previously in class, so brace yourselves. But before we dive into our first gem, I want to take a survey. So based on last week's material, we covered forms. And just to get a survey, we're going to do like a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a neutral thing. How confident are you in forms and the material that was covered last week? So yeah, Let's just see it. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of neutral and some thumbs ups. That's good. And just as a quick survey, how many people did last week's lab? Thumbs up or thumbs down if you did it. Okay, cool. So today's lab is going to build off last week's lab. So if you didn't do it, you get the chance to do it again. And if you did it, we're going to be changing some things. So in terms of logistics, your homework ones are in the process of being graded. We hope to have them out with comments by next Monday. And we've been working on project one for you guys. So they'll probably come out maybe this weekend. Well, probably this weekend. It's coming out soon. And you should look on Piazza for when it's released. And it will be due 2 Sundays from now, so October 26th. And it will be a fun project. You guys should like it. Okay, so now we're gonna continue on forms. So last week we learned about basic forms. Derek talked about form 4 and basic CRUD and using resources to find all your routes and basically how to create and update objects in your database. And today we're going to talk about validating forms. And what validating a form means is that it checks what you put into your form and makes sure that it's not garbage data. And what I mean by this is, for example, if you're looking for an email, you want email addresses. Let's say like HTML5, the input email thing doesn't exist, and there's no way to enforce that what someone's writing is like an email. Like, how do you enforce that in your form? It's going to be like in the form of an email address. So like that's what validations is, and it really ensures that valid data that you're interested in is saved in your database. So this is really important. So I'm going to open up lab 4, which was last week's lab. And this is what it looks like. I'll just give a quick demo of its functionality. So let's say Howard. His description is swag. I don't know. Create it. Oh, shit. Okay, I don't have a Rails server running. Sorry, guys. Cool. Okay. That again. Howard and swag. So now we've created this object called Howard and swag. And just to show you what else you can do with what we did last time in the lab, we can edit the Pokemon. So maybe he knows like Thunderbolt. Update it. So we're basically using the basic CRUD stuff that we learned last week. So now I'm going to ask you guys a question. So first I'm going to release Howard. Just can't get him back. So what would happen right now if I just click create and I put nothing in the title and the description? Like, what is your guess? And these are your options. There's A, B, C, and D. And you guys can do 1, 2, 3, or 4 again. I see a lot of 4s. Okay, a lot of 4s and 3s, I guess. So yeah, I was thinking about it, and like, if a Pokemon doesn't have a name, then like they can't talk, because you know Pokemon always talk through their name. Like Pikachu, Pika. Like, what if they don't have a name? It's like no way to show any emotion. Okay, so actually though, so now let's limit your options to A and B. Like, what do you guys think will happen? So I'm seeing a lot of 2s, and that is correct. Because you don't have validations, you have this object that has no name and no description. And if you're like a Pokemon trainer, or like if you have any app, you don't want junk data like this. So what we're going to do is implement validations. So where should we validate forms? And there are 3 options. We learned about the model view controller architecture, and you can try implementing validations in every single one. So, for example, the one we're going to be talking about mostly today is models. I'll go into the benefits of implementing validations there in a second. Client-side validations is basically validating through the views. So HTML5 does some of that for you. Like you can specify input types. Like you can specify, I want an email, and it'll ensure there is an email. You can specify like required stuff. You can also have JavaScript that does checks on anything, like if it's like if it contains like a word or a pattern, you don't want it. And controller level validations is basically when you're calling like save, update, create. You're looking at the object that's passed in there, and then you perform your validations there. So what are the benefits of each? So first of all, I'm going to preface that validations are good to have in multiple places too. So like it's very easy to have some client-side validations, and we're going to focus on model level validations because model level validations are the best. And the problem with controller level validations is that you might want to validate your objects in multiple places. Like let's say you're creating something and then you're updating something. You don't want to write like the same function and call it twice in your controller. If you define it once in your model, then it'll stay in force the entire time, like no matter what you do with the object. And with client-side validations, it doesn't always work because people can like bypass your front end and just send like curl requests and get post requests and kind of like just completely bypass that. But typically, it's really good to have like client-side and model level validations. So let's talk about where we can find and implement each in this Pokemon lab. So this is our Pokemon model, and this is where we're going to be implementing validations. So this would be your model validations. This is your view validations. And for example, you can see that this is like a text field. So it's going to require that whatever they enter is a text field. So if I put in something else, it might complain. If it's like an HTML, you can also add JavaScript to define patterns or anything else. You can check the values before it's submitted. And then your controller, this is another area you can say have your validations. Like let's say every time I click create, I'm going to look at the Pokemon parameters and see if it's empty. So those are 3 places where we can implement validations, but we're going to implement it in the models. Any questions? Okay. So today we're going to be talking about validations in the model. And these are some of the examples that validations can cover. So one of them I'm going to cover is presence. So this will basically enforce that you can't submit like empty strings. The next one will be length. So let's say, I don't know, you want a user to submit a password and it's like 2 characters long. Like you can enforce a validation to make sure that it's longer. And the last one I'm going to be covering will be like regex. And that if you don't know regex, it's basically kind of like a way to find patterns. And this is a really great site that can help you learn about what these patterns are. So like some examples are like detecting like a character or a number, etc. So like defining your own regex code basically looks for and matches for certain patterns. And those are the 3 examples we're going to do. So now is the demo. Sorry. So okay, this is our Pokemon model. And what we want to do is presence first, I think. So how you do it, define it, is you write validates. And then you want to type in the field that you're validating. So you can look really quickly that Pokemon object or table has name and description. And we're going to be validating the name. So I'm defining that I want to validate the name. And I want to check for the presence. So I'm just going to say presence equals true. And I'll save that. Like let's say if I try running it, boom, error. Let's run it in here. So let's do p equals that equal? Oh wow. Okay. Pokemon.new, where the, what's it called? Title? I think it's called title. Name, sorry. Name is equal to nothing. Let's see what happens. Wait, it was created. Yes.
Wait, how do we get the Pokemon thing if we didn't have before?
What do you mean?
Like the lab 4?
Oh, I have a link at the end of lab. Yeah. Okay. So basically, that validation is called whenever a Pokemon object is tried to be created, and because it fails the validation, it's not created. So now let's do another validation. Let's do the name again, and let's say we want the length to be, I don't know, greater, or the maximum length you can have is like, oops. Let's say like the maximum length you can have is 10. Oops. Another error. So because it can't be created because this is greater than 10 and that validates our validation. So now let's do something that's a little harder to write. We'll do it for the name field again. And this is going to be a regex example. So I'm going to copy it. Oops. Wait. A to Z plus. I think it's this. Okay, so what's that? Oh yeah, there you go. Thanks. So what this regex should do is make sure that everything typed in is a letter. So it won't accept numbers. So let's see if that worked. Perfect. So this regex is basically enforcing that you can't have names with numbers in them or any special characters. So now it's not very useful to error out, or you don't want your app to error out. So we're going to define what our app should do if the Pokemon in the form is not allowed or it violates the validations. So we're going to write and check to see if it's savable. And if it is, we'll just redirect it. Else, what we're going to do is just render the what this code is doing is just basically checking if the Pokemon object is indeed savable. And if so, we're going to direct it to like the detailed view of that Pokemon. And if it's not savable, we're basically going to send it back to the new view. Any questions? So Pokemon path is, I have a Pokemons as listed as a resource. So if I were to run rake routes, I can see all the routes for Pokemon, and new Pokemon path is one of the paths. And it just basically directs them to the new view.
Wait, so Pokemon being a resource is different than Pokemon being a model?
So a model is basically defining what your database table schema should look like. And what the routes.rb file does is it basically, when you get an incoming request to your server, it basically tells or basically directs the request in the right direction. So resources is a way of basically creating a bunch of different routes for a specific object. So it's like your basic CRUD like routes. Like you have get a Pokemon, like read, create, update, delete. So resources is just a way to kind of scaffold that all out for you. So you don't need to go into your routes.rb file and write like get Pokemon, etc. So that's where I'm getting new Pokemon path from. Cool. So let's save it. Oh, I forgot an end. So now when we violate something, it just takes me back to the same page. It doesn't break. But this doesn't really help the user, right? So like, let's say what he tried doing doesn't work, and he's like, what the heck, why am I back at this page again? This doesn't really make sense to me. So what we're going to do is add an error message. I think I have a slide for this. Yes. So we'll be using another gem. No, actually, no, it's built into Rails, and it's called Flash. And basically what Flash is it's a special part of your session, which is cleared with each request. So basically, it's stored in your browser. So if you're logged in or you make a request, like that's something is stored in your session, and there's something there called Flash. So what we're going to do is put an error message in Flash. So when they go back to their session, they see the error message, so they understand what went wrong. So so this is the code where validations fail. What we're going to do is just write Flash, and then let's put it like or error. Let's call it error. What we're going to do is look at the error message that is in the Pokemon object. So when we tried saving Pokemon right here, it didn't successfully save in order for it to get to this block of code. And when an object fails to save or it doesn't pass validation, you can look in that object's errors.messages, and you'll see the reason why it failed. So let's try that. Oh, sorry. And I need to show that in the view. So let's say, let's add it right here. So if there is like a Flash message, let's show it. So let's try creating something now without anything. Interesting. Oh, okay, I need to refresh. Let's restart the server. Come on. No. I have an error. Oh, I don't even have an if word. Cool. So now let's try creating something with everything empty. So now we're getting an error message. So this is helpful for the user. So this is like a very vanilla black and white HTML page, but you can imagine if it was like more styled, you can see that the user would be getting the response that, oh, their name is invalid. But how about for the other validations? Let's do something that's too long. So it handles that for you. Okay, so now we're gonna implement the same thing, but we're gonna use a gem. And the gem is called simple form. Simple forms is basically another, is a wrapper for form for, or what we were using before. And this is their description. I just copied it straight from their GitHub. It aims to be as flexible as possible while helping you to create forms. And you can see the full documentation there. Simple forms is nice because it handles some things for you that we just implemented. So if you remember, what we just did was created validations, created the form. Oh, we didn't do that in class, but we created the form previously, and we had to add the Flash stuff. So what simple forms does is it handles the Flash stuff for you, or it shows the error message for you, so you don't need to write the extra code yourself. And you'll find that a lot of gems very commonly make things easier to implement or help you in a certain way so you have less code and it's more readable. So you should look for cool gems. Anyways, to add simple forms to your specific project or lab, all you would need to define is gem simple form in your gem file. You would run bundle installed, and bundler would see that simple form is not yet installed and then install it for you. And then in order to install simple forms, you need to run the command Rails generate simple form install. So this is like an extra step after you install the gem. And depending on the gem, you might need to run special things. So in this case, you need to run Rails generate simple form install. But in other gems, after running like bundle install, you're basically good to start using the gem. Okay, so now I'm going to use simple forms instead of form for. So I'm just gonna comment this all out. Yeah. And I'll comment out this line. So with simple forms, all we need to do is redefine the form that we're using. And this is just like, you can find this on their docs. Yeah, I'm just gonna type. So as you can see, it's very, very similar to form 4. These are the 2 field names. Oh, there should be a text area. Then we have the submit button. Oops. Cool. So this is the form that we're going to be using to replace this code. And just in case. Undefined method.
I think you use F dot, but it says F dot text.
Oh, yeah, right. Wait, no, that's right. This should be info, actually. Sorry, because description already is defined in the models, it can see that it is a whatever type it is. It can see it's like a text thing, and Rails will map that for you. Let's try again. What? Should be a space. Import. Oh, is it? Let's see what happens if I delete this.
Yeah.
Same error. Oh, I think it is. Oh, it's not. That's right. I was working on that in a branch. Okay. Wait, is it? Oh, it is not in the gem file. Very good. Let's install it then. Actually, I'm just gonna switch to a branch that has it. Okay, let's run our server again. Branching? Who knows what a branch is in Git? Okay. So for people that don't know, branching from master is basically making a copy of your code, and it's like a little sandbox for you to try anything in. And this is good because if your code breaks and you're working in your master and that's your only copy of your code, you're basically like, fuck, like what do I do now? I need to like go back or like, I don't know, like undo everything. Whereas when you have branches, let's say you have a working copy right now, you're just gonna make a copy of that working copy, do whatever you want in this branch, and then if you want to merge it back into master, you basically merge it and then continue working from there. Does that make sense? So basically I use branches to implement what I was doing. So I used the branch for simple form. And just now it didn't work in my original branch because I didn't have the gem simple form installed, but this branch does. Any questions? Okay. So this is the code using simple forms. And yeah, let's see what happens. So, ta-da, like simple forms comes with error messages without having to define anything. So you can notice here there's no flash message, there's no logic. You don't need to have an extra line here for passing a flash message there. And that's because simple forms is a gem that implements that for you. Everything's there. So yeah, that's simple forms, and that's an introduction to gems. In which example? Okay. So I think in simple forms, where is it? In simple forms, when you install it, there. Oh, you mean the message? Oh yeah, okay, that's in the model. Okay, so this is different from the other one. I didn't define the message there. So let's assume there's no message. That'll work. Oops. What's it? I took out the maximum 10 one. So now let's like say a bunch of stuff. Yeah, so now this is like the custom, that was the custom error message. Is too long, maximum is 10 messages, is 10 characters. So you can like basically customize it in your validations with like anything. Like length is 10, only letter please. Yeah, so basically you can kind of see from this intro gem that gems are very powerful. You can find the right gems and it'll make development way easier for you. I think we're going to be covering some gems that we use in the future, but if you're interested in finding gems, you should definitely just maybe write a Piazza post about it. We can post there, or just reach out to us, or just look on the internet and say like top 10 best gems for development or something, or like best gem for like using Facebook API, anything like that. Just there's a gem for that, and you can find it and leverage it in your Rails app. So any questions? Yeah.
So it's only one error at a time? No, even if it has like 3 errors, it'll only show it one at a time.
Let's see. So let's have too long of a length and numbers. So I guess it shows just one at a time.
Can you tweak that, or is that just something?
I'm sure you can tweak that. So there's like, right. So this file comes with simple forms when you install it. And as you can see, there's like a lot of options that you have available to you. And these will help customize the gem for your use. I don't know off the top of my head where like having multiple errors is. But you can see here, like it handles errors for you automatically, and it creates div and input tags for you. So yeah. Anything else? Cool. So let's just jump straight into the lab. So if you did the lab, basically what you're supposed to do is use the simple form gem in order to re-implement forms, and you have custom error messages for your validations, which you'll be writing. And if you haven't done anything, you should implement the CRUD methods again in your controller, and then try implementing simple gem. So yeah, this is the lab again. I made a pretty short bit.ly, so you can copy it. And the code for today is simple form gem.
Simple is best.
Simple is best. So you guys should just write that.
The link back up.
Yeah, I'll put it up back up in a sec. Yeah, simple is best. I think everyone got it. Oh shoot. Cool. And yeah, come to my office hours. That's right. Thanks.